Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia, and I am the project manager at Rambutan Code Academy based in Sabah. Thank you all for joining us today for our first webinar on digital marketing, how to use content to stand out. In this webinar, you will learn how to use content to set yourself apart from your competitors. And I am really excited to introduce our trainer, Jeanette Boone. Jeanette is a writer, coder, and entrepreneur from KL. Jeanette has had extensive experience in digital marketing, and she's used her skills to take her e-commerce startup from 0 to 1 million in less than a year. So, really excited to introduce Jeanette and have her talk a little bit about her company, Right Stuff, a content studio. So, Jeanette, I'll go ahead and give you the floor.
Right. Thanks, Alicia. Hi, everyone. As Alicia mentioned, I'm Jeanette. I run a content studio called Right Stuff. We're based in KL, but we have clients, we can service clients from anywhere because we work remotely. And I guess that's a good thing to be doing in this season, right? So one of the things that I've seen a lot of during this period is that businesses, especially retail businesses that depend on like walk-in customers, they've suffered a lot during this period because they've had to, be locked down. Some of them could not operate during some parts of the movement control order that was happening in Malaysia. And what happened to these businesses is that they experienced weeks of zero sales. And that's really not a position that you want to be in as a business. But what I've also seen is that some businesses are able to thrive during this season, especially those that are, using content and have products and things that that don't depend on like physical meetups. Things like businesses like machine learning, businesses that do delivery or logistics. But the thing is, it doesn't need to be an industry specific thing. Like, I think that every business can find a way to, pivot or brand themselves or create products that could perhaps generate some revenue during this time. One example of that is one client that I have. He runs a clinic. And in the past, he depended a lot on walk-ins, but during the MCO period, he took some part of his business online and now provides therapy online. And I helped him to, sort of like get that system up and people can book online and things like that. But if you're not able to get walk-in customers and you're not able to use physical, like billboards or buntings or things where people walk by and they see it, if you can't use that to promote your business, how else can you do that during this period? And I guess online content is even more important now. Either it could be organic content, which is stuff that you create and attract traffic to without paying for advertising, or it could be paid advertising, but even that you want to be creative with it so that people who see your ads actually convert. So I guess what I want to say is that content is diverse. And first, we're going to look at like what is content. To me, content is any kind of communication. It can be through any medium. So it could be writing, it could be a podcast, it could be videos, it could be a game maybe. And one of the questions I pose here is an event content? Is it considered content? And I guess what you would need to look at is what is the purpose? What is the purpose of that piece of content? And what are you trying to do with it? And I think that when it comes to thinking about content, you shouldn't limit yourself to thinking that it fits in like one medium only, or it has to be on a certain platform. There is a lot of ways to think about content and to use it. So when it comes to developing content, that suits your business goals, because at the end of the day, what you want to do is generate revenue, right? If you create content just to get like likes or follows or like traffic, these things can sometimes be like just for vanity's sake. Your numbers might look really good, but it doesn't translate into like business success. So when it comes to content development, what you need to do is start by like knowing your business, like understanding your brand, identifying your business goals, and then you want to figure out who your customers are as well, and then find out how you can deliver the most value, because that's what's important right now, and that's how you can stand out from your competitors, by providing the most value. So step one, know yourself. I think what you need to do is figure out what you can offer, what sets you apart, and this involves asking yourself a lot of questions about your brand, like what do you do, what kind of products do you have, how are they different from your competitors. And I guess this involves studying your competitors as well, like what do you like about them, what do you dislike about them, how can you apply the things that you like about them into your own business. What does your brand stand for, like what kind of values do you believe in, what end goal do you want to do, what end goal do you want to achieve at the end of the day, and like what kind of value do you want to provide to people. And I heard this saying, don't be the best, be the only. So what this means is that in a certain industry, you may have competitors, but when you look at the intersections between, say, like, for example, tech and media, or like media and F&B, maybe you're the only one that has skills in both those areas. So then you're no longer competing with, say, another media company or another tech company, but you are the only company within like the intersection of those two industries. So that's what I like to look out for when it comes to like branding myself or my projects. And I think personality matters a lot as well. Right now, there's a new age of consumers that cares about authenticity. They have very strong beliefs in like in certain things, like caring for the environment, or like being sustainable, or being woke. Yeah, so understanding who you are as a company and having that personality shine through and being able to be authentic is very important. And then the second step, of course, is to know your customer. Like, if you've been running your business for a while, you should have some data about who your customers are and what kind of people your products appeal to. And I think it's important to go beyond demographics as well. It's not just about like gender and age and what kind of devices they use and things like that. I like to look at what they like and dislike, where do they live on the internet, like what kind of platforms are they on and what do they do on them, what are their biggest problems. And it's really like meeting someone new. You're trying to be it needs to be genuine as well. Get to know them without an agenda to sell. Like you want to get to know them for who they are. It's the same as any kind of friendship, I guess, where if you're just trying to sell something all the time to a new friend, they probably don't want to see you again. So it's very important to be genuine and authentic about all of this, but at the same time, try to find out as much as you can about them. As with any new friendship, like you want to get to know the person better so that you can see if this relationship could go further, right? And then the third thing you need to do is, after you have figured out who you are, figured out who your customers are, you need to deliver value. So now that you know like what issues they're facing and what are their pain points, now you can figure out like what can you provide to them, and what platforms can you use to deliver content to them in a way that they can consume it conveniently. Like, because at the end of the day, you're trying to make it easy for them to experience your content as well. And then you need to think about distribution. So what the goal should always be is to create something that people will share, or like design something that people will remember. And to do this, what you need to look at is delivering value. Like, it's not just about shouting about what you're good at or what you can do, but creating something that is actually useful for people. And I believe that's really the way that you can stand out, because there are so many other brands and companies that are saying, they're always shouting like, buy our products, or like, we're cool, buy us or subscribe to us because we can do this or we can do that. But I think at the end of the day, people want to know not what you can do, but what you can do for them. And I guess that's what's important now. And what I've seen during this, COVID-19 season also, is that a lot of brands are putting out messages about how it's a time for solidarity and things like that. But their call to action at the end of their video ad is like, buy our product. And some of these products aren't like cheap, they're high value products. And sometimes it's not the best time to ask people to buy. So what you want to do is use content to create a relationship, because to me, content is a way that you can communicate with your customer or potential customers. So I want to show you some examples of like really interesting content. So one of them is Neil Patel's Ubersuggest. So if you haven't heard of Neil Patel, he's a digital marketer. He started years ago, and he's one of the like big experts in this field. He does a lot of consulting for SEO. His blog produces a lot of content about how to rank on search engines, how to make more money through content and things like that. Last year or a couple of years back, he built this platform called Ubersuggest, which, if you look at it, it's not what you would think of as like content. It's not an article, it's not a video, it's not a podcast or anything like that. It's an app, right? An app that people can use to find out what keywords are ranking, what kind of traffic do certain keywords generate. It's in line with his brand because he does a lot of SEO work, and he gives advice to people on how to do like keyword research and things like that. So it makes sense for him to create a tool, and this tool managed to generate a huge amount of traffic for him. And eventually, he has created he has turned it into a paid app. So now people can use it for free. But if they want to pay, they get extra functions and things like that. And I think this is a really great example of how a piece of content can be valuable and eventually turn into something that generates revenue for your business as well. And then this is like the epitome of like content marketing, I think, Marvel Cinematic Universe. So if you don't know the story, when Marvel decided to start creating their own movies, they actually wanted to sell toys. And they did like a consumer study, and they brought out different action figures to kids. And they asked a group of children, like, which toy would you want to play with? And a lot of them said Iron Man. And that's why they produced the Iron Man movie. And that was the start to like a huge success story of like, how many movies now do they have? And it itself is a revenue generating source for them. And it's so popular and it's become mainstream now, comic book characters, action figures. It used to have like a small cult following, but there's like a resurgence of like interest in these characters. And it all started with like a movie that was meant to sell a toy. And when they produced the movie, it was not a high budget production as well, relatively. They chose an actor that was sort of like not as popular during that time. They chose a director that was relatively new in the business. So to me, this is a really great example of how you can look at ways to produce content that could eventually generate revenue for you as well. And then content is not just stuff that you put out. It could also be communicating with your customers and potential customers and fans. Like Taylor Swift is really good at this. She'll leave comments on her users, on her fans' posts on Instagram, on Tumblr. I think there have been occasions where she has, DM them on Instagram as well. And this sort of thing may seem not very scalable, but I think content should be a two-way thing as well. Like it's communicating, and communicating is not just talking all the time, but also listening. So you need to be aware of what your fans and potential fans are talking about, and engage with them as well as part of your, content strategy for your business. That's if you really want to stand out, because not every business will take the time to, respond personally to their customers. And this is where I guess the human touch is very important as well. So that's a quick sharing session. If anyone has any questions, feel free to chime in now. Otherwise, I hand it back to Alicia.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeanette. I actually had a quick question. So I think your steps in kind of understanding your business and understanding yourself are a good first step for people to get started with their digital marketing. But are there any tools that you recommend that people can start using once they lay the groundwork?
Right. Yeah. So like once you've decided on what kind of content strategy you want to take, that's, after you figure out like what your brand is all about and what your customers are looking for. If let's say you're looking to produce content, written content maybe, you can use Ubersuggest to, search keywords for what people are looking for. So that's part of understanding your customer as well. Like if a lot of your customers are, say, looking for solutions to a certain problem that they have, they might be searching for it online already. And by figuring out what they're asking, then you can produce content that actually answers their questions. And you can use tools like Ubersuggest to get like keywords, or you can look at you can go to YouTube. Say if you want to produce videos, you can go to YouTube and type a certain problem into the search bar and see what kind of content is being produced already, or maybe look at a certain industry to see what kind of questions people are asking in the comments of YouTube videos maybe. And then the other good place to check is Quora. So you can search within your industry and you can see what kind of questions people are asking there.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a really good first step, or I guess second step, once you kind of figure out yourself and your business and your strategy. I guess one other question I had was if you could speak a little bit to maybe some of the projects that Right Stuff has worked on recently. Definitely very curious to see how you guys, implement your strategies and the types of clients that you work with.
Right. So one of the latest clients that I've been working with, interesting client. They're a music label company, and the bulk of their revenue in the past used to come from events. And as you know, during this season, events are like non-existent, right? They can't organize events. Um, and they can't, and nobody's organizing events for their artists to play at. So what we decided to do was, we wanted a way for uh, people, the fans, to continue enjoying their music, be it live or recordings, and at the same time support these artists. The work that they're putting out. So in a case like this, it's not necessary to produce articles. But what these artists already have is, they already have videos, they have their tracks on Spotify. But how can you use those things that you already have to like generate revenue? So what we helped them do was, set up their website in a way that allowed people to buy their albums with extra features. That's what we're in the process of doing now. At the same time, we also put like functions on their website for fans to support the artists that they like. And then the company themselves have been doing online gigs in partnership with like other events companies. So I think that's an interesting project because it's something that seems so physical or so dependent on like physical arrangements, but actually can be taken online as well with just some tweaking.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And that's definitely not an industry or like the type of work that I expected to move online in what seems like such a seamless way. So I think that definitely speaks to kind of how creative, companies like yours have to be when working with different types of clients that are used to the traditional way of engaging with their audience.
Mhm.
Taking a few steps back, kind of to my original question of getting started, do you have any recommendations for people who, want to jumpstart their content marketing after, they go through their whole discovery process, but doing so in a way that's effective and affordable?
Right. I think like sometimes when you are developing content, you need to think about like how much resources you have as well, and what kind of team members you have. So like I guess Faizra Rambutan has been doing this really well. Like you guys are a tech company, but at the same time you're an education company, and if you don't have a lot of resources to like produce videos or like high production quality videos, you can do things like webinars, which I guess can be done on quite a low budget depending on what tools you use. You can look at things like podcasts instead of video, which is like way cheaper to produce as well. And then if you have good writers on your team, who may not be great at like speaking or being on video, maybe you want to produce articles instead. And then the other thing I've seen a lot of recently as well is Instagram slideshows. So they're structured like little booklets that sort of like provide information in snippets. They're very nice to look at, and if done well, can actually provide a lot of information. Can be used to give your brand some kind of authority in your industry, especially if it's informative. Um, yeah, so there are a lot of ways to go about doing it, a lot of platforms you can use. Uh, and yeah, I think you just need to be like creative and realistic about what kind of resources you have.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's definitely really practical, actionable advice. So thanks for sharing that with us. And thank you so much for your time today, Jeanette. It's really great to hear from an industry expert. And so if you have any questions, audience members, about Right Stuff or about getting started with your content strategy, definitely please reach out to Jeanette, and her contact info is here. But yeah, that goes ahead and wraps up our webinar for today. Everyone make sure you follow us on Facebook at Rambutan Academy to catch our next webinar or join our next live stream. So again, thank you so much, Jeanette. Really great speaking with you, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks. See
Bye.
ya.